Captain Alina Rosewood stood at attention in the gleaming command center of Earth's orbital defense station, her decorated uniform feeling suddenly heavy as Admiral Harrison's hologram loomed before her. "You deliberately violated first contact protocols, Captain," his voice boomed through the chamber. "Intervening in a civilian matter involving an unregistered alien species. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Alina's mind flashed back to the incident at New Shanghai's bustling spaceport. The small figure huddled in the corner, scales shimmering with an iridescent glow, eyes wide with terror as security forces approached. The child, she was certain it was a child, had simply been trying to find food, accidentally knocking over a vendor's cart in its panic. "With respect, Admiral," Alina's voice remained steady, "that civilian matter was about to become a diplomatic incident. The security forces were about to use neural suppressants on a juvenile." "It wasn't your call to make," Harrison's hologram flickered with rage. "That species isn't in any of our databases. Protocol demands immediate containment and—" "And what?" Alina stepped forward, breaking protocol herself. "Watch as they torture a child because we're too afraid to show basic decency." The silence that followed was deafening. Outside the station's windows, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black velvet of space, oblivious to the drama unfolding in its orbit. Alina knew she had crossed a line, but the memory of those frightened eyes kept her spine straight. "Turn in your command codes, Captain Rosewood." Harrison's voice had gone cold. "Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty." The next few hours passed in a blur. Alina packed her quarters, said goodbye to her crew, and boarded a shuttle back to Earth. As the planet grew larger in the viewport, she clutched a small data crystal, the only evidence she had managed to gather about the mysterious child before security whisked it away. Her apartment in New Shanghai felt empty, the cityscape beyond her windows a maze of neon and hovering advertisements. Alina had just poured herself a drink when her entire living room lit up with an emergency broadcast. The holographic display showed massive objects appearing in orbit, unlike any ships she had ever seen. "This is Admiral Zena Vale of the Galactic Concordat," a voice announced across all frequencies. "We are here regarding the Harbinger child. Those who interfered with its capture will present themselves immediately." Alina's drink slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. The ships above weren't just massive, they were impossible. Their geometries seemed to bend space itself, their surfaces rippling like liquid metal. As she watched, smaller craft began descending through the atmosphere, their designs clearly not of any known species. Her communicator chirped. A message scrolled across its surface. "Captain Rosewood, your compassion has sparked something greater than you know. Meet me at the abandoned lunar base Alpha. Bring the data crystal, K." Alina's military training screamed that this was a trap, but her instincts, the same ones that had made her defend that child, told her this was important. She glanced at her old service pistol, then at the data crystal containing the child's biological readings. The city's warning sirens began to wail as more ships appeared in the sky. Alina made her decision. She grabbed her emergency pack, the pistol, and the crystal. Whatever was happening, that child was at the center of it, and she hadn't sacrificed her career just to abandon them now. As she stepped out into the chaos-filled streets, the sky above New Shanghai rippled with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. Humanity's first major contact with advanced alien civilizations was about to begin, and it had all started because one captain couldn't stand by and watch a child suffer. Alina smiled grimly as she made her way through the panicking crowds. Whatever was coming, she had chosen compassion over protocol, and she would make that same choice again. The universe, it seemed, had taken notice. The surface of the moon stretched out before Alina like a silver desert, Earth's glow casting long shadows across the crater-marked landscape. Her borrowed shuttle, acquired from a panicking rich executive who'd been all too happy to exchange it for her military credentials, sat behind her like a sleeping beast. The abandoned lunar base Alpha loomed ahead, its dome still intact but dark, a testament to humanity's first stumbling steps into space. Her helmet display showed no life signs, no power signatures, nothing to indicate why she'd been summoned here. The data crystal felt heavy in her suit's pocket as she approached the base's airlock. Alina had watched the news feeds during her flight. Riots breaking out in major cities, military forces mobilizing worldwide, and strange atmospheric disturbances wherever Admiral Vale's ships appeared. The airlock cycled with surprising smoothness for an abandoned facility. Inside, emergency lights flickered to life, casting the corridor in a pale blue glow. Alina's suit sensors detected breathable atmosphere, but she kept her helmet sealed. 20 years in space had taught her that surprises usually weren't the good kind. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't come." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Alina spun, weapon drawn, but found only empty corridor. "Please, Captain Rosewood, if I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have made it past orbit." A figure stepped through a wall, literally through it, as if the metal were no more substantial than mist. Alina's weapon didn't waver. The being before her was tall, its body covered in what looked like liquid crystal armor that shifted colors with each movement. Its face was hidden behind a mask that seemed to reflect infinite space. "Commander Crix," the being introduced itself with a slight bow. "Former security chief of the Prismatic Conclave, current fugitive, and possibly your only ally in what's coming." Alina's tactical training kicked in, analyzing the situation. The being's technology was far beyond anything humanity possessed, yet it had called her here secretly rather than simply taking what it wanted. "The child," she said. "What was it?" "Not what," Crix corrected, reaching up to remove its mask. The face beneath was surprisingly humanoid, though the skin had a crystalline quality that caught the light in mesmerizing ways. "Who?" "And she is the last survivor of the luminoid species, or so we thought, until more of them started appearing across the galaxy." Alina's mind raced. "The ships in orbit are here because you proved an ancient prophecy, right?" Crix's expression was unreadable. "The luminoids were believed extinct for millennia, hunted to near extinction by the void architects, beings that exist partly in our dimension, partly in others. The prophecy spoke of a guardian race that would shelter the returning luminoids, showing compassion where others showed fear." "That's ridiculous," Alina scoffed. "I just stopped some thugs from hurting a kid." "Exactly," Crix's form shimmered. "That's what made it real. No grand gesture, no political maneuvering, just simple compassion acted upon without hesitation. The Void Architects have spent centuries manipulating species against each other, creating artificial conflicts to prevent unity. Your action disrupted their carefully constructed narrative." The base's systems suddenly came alive, displays showing massive energy signatures in Earth orbit. Admiral Vale's fleet was moving, forming complex geometric patterns. "They're not here to help, are they?" Alina asked, already knowing the answer. "Vale serves the architects," Crix confirmed. "She's here to either capture the child or ensure humanity is blamed for its disappearance. Either way, Earth becomes another pawn in their game." Alina studied the tactical displays, her military mind noting patterns, weaknesses. "Why tell me this? I'm just a discharged captain with a conscience." Crix laughed, a sound like wind through crystal. "Because the prophecy isn't finished, Captain. The Guardian race doesn't just shelter the luminoids. They help lead the universe against the architects. Humanity's capacity for both violence and compassion makes you unique. You can fight like demons while showing mercy like angels." "And the data crystal?" Alina pulled it from her pocket, its surface now glowing with an inner light. "Contains the child's genetic sequence, proof that the luminoids are returning naturally, not being artificially created as Vale will claim. But more importantly, it contains the location of others in hiding. The architects don't know we managed to save more than just one." Outside, the Earth continued to glow, but now Alina could see dark spots appearing in the atmosphere where Vale's ships hovered. Reality itself seemed to be straining around them. "How long do we have?" "Before the architects fully manifest. Hours, maybe days. They're careful, preferring to work through proxies like Vale. Direct intervention risks drawing attention from other powers." Alina holstered her weapon and straightened her spine. "Right. So we need to expose Vale, protect the luminoids, and somehow convince humanity to unite against an enemy they don't even know exists. Anything else." Crix's crystalline face shifted into what might have been a smile. "Welcome to galactic politics, Captain. Still think you should have followed protocol." The displays showed more ships arriving in Earth orbit, different designs, different factions. The game was bigger than Alina had imagined, but the principle remained the same. Protect those who needed protection, fight those who needed fighting. She'd lost her career defending one child, might as well go all in. The underground bunker beneath New Shanghai's old district hummed with activity. Alina watched as Crix's crystalline fingers danced over holographic displays, showing the positions of Vale's fleet and the growing tiers in reality appearing around Earth. 3 days had passed since their moon meeting, and things had gotten considerably worse. "Another rift opened over Buenos Aires," reported Lieutenant James Chen, one of the few military officers who had believed Alina's warning. His uniform was crumpled, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. "And we've got confirmed sightings of those things coming through." Alina nodded grimly. The things were void architects in their true form, massive, shifting geometries that hurt the mind to look at directly. They hadn't attacked yet, content to hover near the rifts, watching, waiting. "Vale's broadcasting again," called out Dr. Parvati Nair, their communications expert. Her fingers flew over multiple screens as the Admiral's image appeared above their command table. "People of Earth," Vale's voice was smooth, reasonable. "The terrorist Alina Rosewood and her alien conspirators have unleashed dangerous forces upon your world. Surrender them, and the Galactic Concordat will ensure your planet's safety." Crix made a sound like crystals chiming in wind. "She's good. Every word designed to stoke fear, turn humans against each other. The architects have had millennia to perfect their manipulation." Alina studied the tactical displays. More ships were arriving, not just Vale's fleet, but vessels from other species, other factions. Some were likely allies they didn't know about yet, others enemies waiting to pounce. And somewhere out there, the luminoid child she'd saved was being protected by a network of resistance fighters. "Update from Professor Joe," James announced, reading from a tablet. "He's decoded more of the genetic data from your crystal. The luminoids aren't just refugees, they're living quantum computers. Their genetic structure can process and store vast amounts of interdimensional data. Which is why the architects want them eliminated," Crix added. "The luminoids can see through their manipulations, understand the true nature of reality. A species like that, spreading through the galaxy, would make it impossible for the architects to keep playing their games," Alina finished. She turned to Dr. Nair. "How many resistance groups have responded to our broadcast?" Parvati pulled up a star chart. 17 confirmed contacts. Most are small, but they're spread across 3 spiral arms. The architects have enemies everywhere. They just needed someone to finally stand up. The bunker shook slightly as something massive passed overhead. Their sensors showed distortions in the local space-time field, a signature they'd learned meant void architects were near. Alina felt a chill run down her spine. Each encounter with these beings left her with nightmares she couldn't quite remember. "Captain," James called out urgently, "we're getting a signal. Well, you need to see this." The command table's hologram shifted, showing a familiar face that made Alina's blood run cold. Admiral Harrison, her former commander, the one who had stripped her of rank, stood before them. But something was wrong. His eyes seemed to shift color, his movements too fluid. "Alina," his voice had an echo to it, like multiple people speaking just out of sync. "The child you saved, the prophecy, we were wrong, Vale. She's not what you think. None of this is what you think." Crix moved with impossible speed, crystalline hands flying over controls. "This signal, it's coming from inside Vale's flagship. Harrison is being held there, but this transmission is breaking through their quantum encryption." "How?" The hologram flickered. "The architects aren't our enemy. They're trying to prevent something worse. The luminoids, their power. It draws them, the old ones, the things between spaces." The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Alarms blared as their sensors detected massive energy spikes above the city. Through the bunker's small window, Alina saw the sky turn colors that shouldn't exist. Multiple rifts opening, Parvati shouted over the growing chaos. Something's coming through, energy signatures bigger than anything we've recorded. Alina made a decision. James, signal all resistance cells. Tell them it's time. Parvati, broadcast our evidence about Vale on all frequencies. Crix. She turned to her alien ally. Can you get us onto that flagship? The crystalline being's surface rippled with colors. With the rifts disrupting their defenses? Maybe, but Alina, if Harrison is right. Then we need answers directly from Vale, Alina cut him off. No more proxy wars, no more manipulation. Whatever's really going on, humanity deserves to know the truth. The bunker shook again, harder this time. Through their sensors, they watched as massive shapes emerged from the rifts, not the geometric forms of void architects, but something organic, ancient, hungry. Vale's ships immediately opened fire, their advanced weapons seeming pathetically small against these new entities. Well, James said dryly, checking his weapon, at least we know they weren't lying about trying to stop something worse. Alina strapped on her combat gear, made sure the data crystal was secure. Around her, the resistance team prepared for what might be their final mission. Outside, humanity's first interstellar war was about to begin, not over territory or resources, but because one captain had chosen to show kindness to a lost child. Crix, she called out as they headed for their shuttle. If we don't make it, make sure someone knows the truth about all of it. The crystalline being fell into step beside her. The truth, that humanity's greatest weapon was never its technology or its warriors, but its capacity for compassion in the face of fear. Alina smiled grimly as they boarded the shuttle. Above them, the sky continued to tear itself apart. Something like that. Now let's go have a chat with Admiral Vale about what's really going on out there in the dark between stars. The interior of Vale's flagship defied conventional physics. Alina and her team moved through corridors that seemed to branch in impossible directions, their footsteps echoing in ways that suggested spaces far larger than what they could see. Crix led the way, his crystalline form pulsing with dim light, while James and Parvati covered their flanks. The bridge should be ahead, Crix whispered, though Alina wasn't sure whispers were necessary in a place like this. But be warned, time moves strangely here, the architect's technology. A scream cut through the air, Harrison's voice, but distorted, stretched. The team rounded a corner to find the Admiral suspended in what looked like liquid darkness, his form flickering between moments in time. Alina, his voice came in fragments, the child, showed me. Everything, the luminoids aren't just refugees, they're keys, reality's gatekeepers. Before Alina could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Through the vessel's transparent sections, they could see Earth below, and the massive entities now emerging from the rifts in ever greater numbers. They moved like sea creatures through space itself, their forms suggesting tentacles and maws large enough to swallow cities. The old ones, Harrison managed. The architects tried to warn us, contain them. Warning you by manipulating species into wars, by hunting children, Alina challenged, though her voice wavered as another entity emerged, its very presence making the ship's reality-defying corridors twist even further. Because unity, Harrison's form stabilized briefly, unity draws their attention, galactic peace, like a dinner bell. The ship rocked again. Emergency alerts flashed in alien scripts as Vale's fleet engaged the cosmic horrors. Through it all, Alina could see more rifts opening, tiers in space leading to places where physics itself seemed to break down. Bridge sealed, Crix reported, his crystalline hands working over what appeared to be empty air. Vale's in there, but he stopped, head tilting. Something's wrong, the energy readings. The bridge doors exploded inward, revealing Admiral Vale, or what had been Vale. Her form shifted between human and something else, her uniform rippling like liquid metal. Behind her, bridge crews worked at stations that seemed to fold through additional dimensions. Captain Rosewood, Vale's voice resonated on multiple frequencies. Do you understand now why we did what we did? Unity, peace, cooperation, beautiful ideals that draw beautiful predators. Alina kept her weapon raised, though she doubted it would do much good. So you manufactured conflicts, kept species divided and afraid. We preserved them? Vale's form flickered violently. Countless civilizations surviving because they never grew powerful enough to attract attention. The luminoids, they were meant to be guardians to help us maintain the balance, but they began to question, to seek alternatives. Another impact rocked the ship. Through the bridge's viewport, Alina watched as one of Vale's ships was torn apart by something with too many angles. Earth's combined military forces were engaging now, their weapons seeming pitifully inadequate against the cosmic entities. "The child you saved," Vale continued, her form stabilizing slightly. "It carries a genetic memory, a key to awakening others. If enough luminoids return, their combined quantum consciousness will create a beacon that will draw every old one in this galaxy. Billions will die." Alina's mind raced, processing everything. Harrison's warning, Vale's revelation, the ancient horrors now bearing down on her homeworld. But something didn't add up. If the luminoids were such a threat, she questioned, why didn't the architects simply wipe them out completely? Why leave any alive? Vale's expression shifted in impossible ways. Because they need us," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see a figure materialize on the bridge, the luminoid child Alina had saved, but now glowing with inner light. Behind it stood others of its kind, their forms suggesting both youth and ancient wisdom. "The architects," the child continued, its voice carrying harmonics that made Alina's bones vibrate. "They're not preserving species, they're farming them, keeping them divided, afraid, generating the negative emotions the old ones feed on. A controlled food source." Vale's form destabilized completely, revealing something geometric and ancient beneath the human disguise. "You understand nothing. We control the flow, maintain the balance." "You maintain your power," the child corrected. "But humanity showed us another way. When Alina chose compassion over protocol, she proved that unity doesn't have to draw darkness. It can create light." As if in response, the luminoids began to glow brighter. Alina felt something shift in the air, in reality itself. The rifts above Earth weren't just tears now, they were changing, transforming. "Quantum resonance cascading," Crix shouted, his crystalline form vibrating in sympathy. "The luminoids, they're not drawing the old ones there." "Rewriting the rules," Alina finished, watching as golden light poured from the rifts, pushing back the cosmic horrors. The luminoids weren't just living quantum computers. They were reality's immune system, and humanity's compassion had helped them remember their true purpose. Vale's true form lunged forward, geometric patterns shifting with rage, but Alina was ready. Her weapon, modified with crystalline technology, fired a burst of quantum-entangled energy. The blast caught the architect in mid-transformation, freezing it between states. "The old ones were never the real threat," the luminoid child said, approaching Alina. "Fear was, fear of unity, fear of connection, fear of the very things that make us strong." Through the viewport, Alina watched as more golden light filled Earth's sky, the luminoids' power transforming the very fabric of space around them. The war wasn't over, but for the first time she understood what they were really fighting for. Golden light cascaded through Vale's flagship as reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Alina stood with the luminoid child, watching as more of its kind emerged from quantum space, their combined power transforming the rifts that had threatened Earth. The old ones were being pushed back, their impossibly vast forms retreating before the light of unified consciousness. "We don't have much time," the child said, its voice carrying harmonics that made Alina's teeth vibrate. "The architects embedded their influence deep within the fabric of space-time. We can hold the old ones back, but we need to do something about the root cause," Alina finished. Around them, the ship's impossible geometry was beginning to stabilize, the architect's reality-warping technology failing as the luminoid's presence strengthened normal space-time. Crix's crystalline form pulsed with understanding. The nexus, the central point where the architects first anchored their manipulation of reality. That's what the data crystal was really showing us, not just genetic sequences, but coordinates. The frozen form of Vale, the architect's true geometric shape, began to crack, lines of golden light seeping through. Through the bridge's viewport, Alina could see Earth's combined fleet regrouping, their weapons now enhanced by luminoid energy. But more importantly, she saw something else. Hope. The nexus is in the space between spaces, the child explained. A quantum fold where the architects first learned to manipulate dimensional barriers, if we can reach it. We can undo what they did, Parvati finished, her scientific mind racing ahead. Reset the fundamental forces they've been manipulating, but the energy required, it would be astronomical. James checked his modified weapon, now glowing with crystalline enhancements. And I'm guessing the architects won't just let us walk in. Alina looked at her unlikely team, a crystalline rebel, a quantum child, and loyal humans who had chosen to believe in something better than fear. Above them, more luminoids were emerging, their light pushing back the darkness between stars. But she could see other ships arriving too, more architects, their geometric forms cutting through space-time. "How long can you hold the old ones back?" she asked the child. "Long enough, but Alina," the child's form flickered. "Reaching the nexus, undoing the architect's work, it will change everything. Reality itself will shift. Some things that happened might unhappen." Alina understood the implication. Her choices, her actions, her very role in these events, all might be undone. But she also understood something else. True compassion meant doing the right thing, even if no one would remember you did it. "Crix, can you get us to these coordinates?" The crystalline being's surface rippled with determination. "With the luminoid's help? Yes, but Alina, the child, is right. This will rewrite reality. You might wake up tomorrow having never lost your commission, never saved the child, never learned that humanity's greatest strength is its capacity for compassion," Alina smiled. "Maybe, but maybe that's what we'll remember instead of fear." The ship shuddered as they made their preparations. Through quantum space, they could see the nexus, a point where all realities converged, where the architects had first learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of existence. The luminoid's power would get them there, but what they did next would determine the fate of not just humanity, but all sentient life. "Ready?" Alina asked her team. Each nodded in turn. The journey through quantum space was beyond description, a passage through layers of reality where thought and matter blurred. When they emerged, they faced a structure that shouldn't exist. The nexus, a geometric impossibility where the architects had first embedded their influence into the universe itself. And it was guarded. Hundreds of architects in their true forms, their geometric patterns a violation of space-time. Behind them, the old ones pressed against the luminoid's barrier, drawn by the power concentrated here. "Remember," Alina told her team as they prepared for the final battle, "whatever happens next, we proved something important. The universe doesn't have to run on fear." What followed was a battle that broke the laws of physics. The luminoid's power crashed against architect geometry, while Alina and her team fought their way through shifting reality. James and Parvati's modified weapons carved paths through impossible space, while Crix's crystalline nature let him move through dimensions the architects thought they controlled. At the heart of the nexus, Alina found what she needed to see, the point where fear had first been embedded into the fundamental forces of reality. Not by the old ones, not by the architects, but by existence itself, a universe so afraid of entropy that it had accepted manipulation as the price of survival. With trembling hands, she raised the data crystal, now burning with luminoid energy. Around her, space-time began to unravel, not in destruction, but in renewal. "You can't," 1,000 architect voices spoke at once. "The old ones will be drawn to unity." Alina's voice was steady. "Maybe, but we'll face them together, not divided by fear." She activated the crystal. Reality shifted. And somewhere in a restored universe, a captain made a choice to help someone in need, not because of prophecies or cosmic wars, but because it was the right thing to do. Some said the universe changed that day. Others remembered it differently. But across the galaxy, species found themselves looking up at the stars and feeling something new, not fear of what lurked between spaces, but hope for what they could accomplish together. And if sometimes people found themselves being a little kinder, a little braver, a little more willing to trust, Well, that was just human nature. Or perhaps it was something more, an echo of a choice made in a reality that never was, where compassion proved stronger than fear, and one act of kindness saved not just a child, but the very fabric of existence itself.